I get asked all the time, how do I build my dream home? This is going to be part of a series, and today we're going to talk about how to find that piece of land, how to buy that piece of land so that you can build a dream home.
All right. It's August 1st, and we're going to be talking about buying rural land and building your dream home. I think it might be podcast number 74. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, anyways, we're going to be talking about buying rural land and building your dream home today. We've got 40 key points that you need to, that's only 40, right?
Yeah.
So once you get to 40, easy, build your house. But Anton, let's just jump into, let's say, what are the general things you need to consider before we get into point one?
The general things you need to consider are, why are you doing this? What's the emotional goal that we're trying to accomplish? How can I accomplish that? Now, what's the financing tied to it? And then what's the timeline? Because we're going to go through this, and even with these 40 points, we're scratching the surface here. This is the tip of that iceberg, and there's so much sitting right beneath it when you look at things like this. And then I know, you've hunted for land. We've hunted for land together. We have a lot of people who constantly call and say, I want to buy this vacant piece of land. I want to build my dream home. So I was like, you know what? Let's come up with a big checklist, a giant list for people to go through to figure this out. And for our listeners who don't know, I live in the north end of Seattle Metro. I've been doing construction and land development and residential real estate sales here for 20 years. I currently have 19 land development projects going all over Snohomish County. We've got them in Skagit County. We've got them in Thurston County. We've got them in Whatcom County. So that's up and down the I-5 corridor. I'm going to talk about this from the Washington State, Western Washington perspective, okay? So if you're listening from across the U.S., I need you to understand that Washington, Oregon, and California have the strictest land use codes of almost anywhere. So if you follow this guide, this will work anywhere because we're coming at it from like one of the hardest states to be a builder or a land developer in.
Well, that was one of my questions before we got into it was, is it easy to build a home? Or if it's not, why? And it sounds like part of it is the permitting and the restrictions and just the hurdles you have to go through before you even build the actual house.
It's easy to build a home. It's easy to get a permit. What it takes is tenacity, the right network of people, controlling your emotions when things don't work correctly, and having enough money and then enough reserves to be able to get it done properly. So it's easy, but yes, it takes time and tenacity. It's a slow process.
And having a good agent like Anton Stentner.
And having someone who's got your back throughout this whole process.
Okay, well, let's get other people's back and get into point number one. Define your goals.
So we tried to break this whole thing up into sections. So this first section is about like preparation and research. So if I was to define my goal, like, why are we buying this piece of land? Do we need just a large lot? Do we need acreage? Do we want to have a farm? Are we going to go buy a farm? What's the privacy like? What's it smell like? What's it look like? What's the topography? The flatter a piece of property, cheaper to build. The more slope, the more expensive. What kind of wetlands are on it? What kind of recreation would you do on it? Is it waterfront? Is it not waterfront? That's what you want to do when you start to define this.
Why do you want goals?
Because you have to think about this like that old colloquialism, the man that chases two rabbits catches none. If you don't define what you're looking for, everything could be a deal. And you may go look at too many things and you'll start to waste time and waste money. When we're talking about land, it's wasting money. And because this is a long process, you don't want this to go on for years and years and years, even though some of them will.
Okay, point number two, set a budget.
So you're going to want to establish a clear budget. Inside of that budget, though, you're going to have a buffer for the overrun. In 20 years, with every custom we've ever been involved in and every development project, very rarely do they come in right at budget. Quite often they end up going over budget. I want you to include in there the purchase price, the carrying costs, what type of loan. You've got to include development costs for getting the land ready. You have to include buffer for unexpected things. I've brought the joke up many times. We were working on a project in Gold Bar. We're digging the foundation hole, and there's a rock the size of a Volkswagen Bug. That is an unexpected problem that's just going to cost more money. I also want you to do some research and market trends. Understand what's happening, like how quickly is land selling in your area? How much land is generally available? Because in our area at the north end of the Seattle metro, when a piece of land pops up and it's a good one, it's gone in days. Okay, so you're not going to have weeks to go, piddle around with this. One thing that you can do for research, go into the MLS, go into tax records, talk to land brokers who just do land like we do. Look at Zillow, look at Facebook Marketplace, look at Craigslist, the Redfin Data Center, look at LandWatch, talk to your local title companies, talk to the surveyors and the engineers who work in that area. And so one of the things that I want to give people as a piece of data or reference, Benji, do you think it's home prices or land prices? Which one do you think is rising faster in our area right now?
Home prices?
Land is. It's crazy. So land values in the greater Seattle metro are appreciating faster than homes. Well, how do I know that? Because I'm doing the research. And also the Puget Sound Regional Council is trying to remove land development in our area down to 2% of total growth in the rural area. Right now, we're sitting at about 6%. So they want that to be cut down to 1/3. So in the future, you're going to see even less land development in our area because of zoning regulation and what's called the Growth Management Act. Go do that research in whatever area you're looking to find out if there's going to be more or less land in the future. But always understand, God only made one earth. So buy dirt. The dirt bank has never failed, me or any of our investors. And if it's a good piece of land, you got to move on it quickly.
Got it. And also, there's just less land, right? Point number 4, identify potential locations, communities.
Yeah. So as you're starting to think, okay, I want to go build, what area would you live in? What community would you live in? And then why would you live there? What amenities are you looking for? What proximity does it have to shopping, recreation, your hobbies, church, working out, CrossFit? Then what I want you to do is I want you to go to these communities or these areas at different times of the day and listen. What does it feel like? What does it look like? Then go drive those communities during rush hour. What's it going to feel like when you've got to go to work? What's it going to feel like when you're coming home from work? You want to dig into it to make sure that you're going to get the peace that you're looking for.
Point number 5, understanding zoning laws.
So this is a really big one, especially in areas like Western Washington, the Seattle metro where we live. Zoning regulations, whether it's by the city or the county, dictate what the land can be used for. So if you're going to go start a farm, does the zoning allow you to have a farm? Does the zoning allow you to grow trees? Does the zoning allow you to have chickens? Or maybe you have a family member moving in with you. Does the zoning allow for an accessory dwelling unit or a duplex or 2 homes to be built there? What I want you to do is you go to the city or the county. You're going to go and look at the zoning map. You're going to figure out the zoning. You're then going to look at the use table. And you're going to scroll down the use table. You're going to look at the allowed uses and the permitted uses. And that will tell you what's allowed and what's permitted in that area. What I don't want you to trust, and this mistake has cost me a bunch of money, never trust the listing agent, the internet, or even what someone at the city or the county says. So when we go to the city or the county, we trust them, but we verify. We trust them, but we get it in writing, because it does not count until it's in writing, until you have an approval. Once you have an approval, they can't take that away. But understand that just because someone behind the counter working for the city says you can do it does not mean it's going to happen. So trust but verify.
Word. All right. So now we're in section 2, which is finding the right land. Point number 6, work with a local realtor who specializes in land.
Yeah. So like all professionals, there's always people who know land. We've been doing land for 20 years. I have a whole bunch of money bet on my own projects here throughout the Seattle Metro. So if you have an opportunity to work with someone like us, they know the market. They've got the network. They've got the history. They can solve the problems. A call I got this morning. She says, "How much is it to build an ADU?" And I said, "Are we talking just the ADU? Are we talking just the permitting? What?" And she goes, "Oh my goodness, this is a bigger question." I said, "This is a much bigger question." I said, "Girl, grab your pen, grab your paper." I said, "We're going to school." And I walked her through a checklist that she could use with the client to work through how to be able to put an ADU on that particular piece of property. If they can't answer basic questions about land, if they're not spending their own money, if they haven't done land development projects, go find someone who has.
Point number 7, visit multiple properties.
Buying land is almost more emotional, Benji, than buying a house, because this is more on the dreamer side. So the dreamer walks out there and they go, "Oh my goodness, this is the one." And they say this is the one because the sun is shining, the grass is mowed down, they can see where their home is going to go. But what they don't realize is there's these giant power lines on the other side of those trees. This is an exact story. We drive over to another piece of property. The property is not mowed down. It's solid forest. There's sticker bushes in the front. There's this road that's totally grown over. We're beating through it with a machete. What we found is one was prepped and ready to go and looked beautiful. The second one, though, was the perfect 5-acre piece. Almost no wetlands, almost totally usable. Down a private dead-end road. No power lines hiding behind it. No trashy neighbors next door. And so what I want you to do is I just want you to go visit multiple of them and get a feel for the land buying experience. You're going to have to look at probably 3 to 5 at least before you find the one you're looking for.
Number 8, bring proper gear to walk the property.
Okay, so remember we live in Western Washington. Okay, so I'm going to go through the giant list of proper gear. And this is like the never-ending list. So I have my real estate agent land broker toolkit that sits in my car. I have an extra box for this that sits in the Jeep where you have pants that do not snag on sticker bushes. You have waterproof hiking boots. You have a long sleeve shirt. You have a hat. Why do you have a hat? Because your forehead is going to get burned if you're out there for hours. You have your 50 block sunscreen. You have a machete. I carry multiple machetes. I got the small one and like 2 of the big ones. I also carry a small hatchet. You have a compass, okay? Because there are times when I've been out, like walking big pieces, okay? I'm out on 80 acres. I'm like, where am I? So I got to kind of pull out the compass, figure out where I'm at. Okay, we came in from that direction, walk on out. We also use an app called OnX Hunt. It's a hunting app. I'm not a hunter, but I love this app. I pay for the elite version. As long as you have GPS, and the reason I pay for the elite version is so I can download the maps beforehand. Literally, a GPS signal will pop up, and it's within 5 to 20 feet of where I am, and it kind of gives me a rough idea of where the boundaries are. We also carry 100-foot measuring tape and 300-foot measuring tape. We carry wood stakes. We carry ribbons. We carry a giant piece of metal rebar and hammer so you can pound the metal rebar in, throw the measuring tape over it, and pull it yourself. Because if you try to pull a measuring tape with no weight on the end, you try to figure out the location of known structures, the location of utilities, the wetland maps, the topo, all before you go. And I also like to bring a printed version of the aerial. So as I'm walking around, I can see where the trees are. I can see where the property starts to slope down. This is from years of doing this. You're not going to start here, but don't go unprepared. Otherwise, you're like any normal guy doing a project. Oh, don't have that. Got to go to Home Depot, get more material, come on back, try again.
All right. Tip number 9, check for utilities.
As you're going out there, like I said, we should be verifying the utilities. So if it says it's got a well on site, let's go find the well site. Let's figure out if it's a dug well, a drilled well. If it's a drilled well, is the cap on it, does it have a serial number? And does the Department of Ecology know who has it? And does the health department have records for it? Is there an old septic on the property? Am I going to have to get a new septic? Where's the power at? How am I going to get access? What's it look like for a drain field? And very important in today's day and age, where's my high-speed internet going to come from?
And why is it important to understand those and verify utilities?
Because here's what's going to happen. I just looked at a beautiful piece of property out off the Mountain Loop Highway, 35 acres. And I'm looking around, I'm like, there's no freaking power. So I literally get out of my truck, I start walking back down the road, and I'm kind of pacing off. The power is 900 feet away. That's $100,000, $200,000 to bring the power in. Now, if that power pole was sitting right there at the edge and I confirmed PUD said there was enough power, I just saved myself a whole bunch of money. That's what you're doing. You're trying to identify the location of utilities because everything in land development costs money, and it's never a dollar.
Number 10, evaluate access.
When I say evaluate access, I'm thinking about this multiple ways. What is the condition of the access? Does it have access? A gigantic mistake people make is they can see it on the map and they assume there is access. If a public road does not touch the property, you are not guaranteed access. If it doesn't have a public road in front of it, you then have to go find the easement. Then you have to confirm you have the right to use the easement and that the easement has the rights for you to bring in utilities across the easement. This is a really big one. This is a costly mistake. It's cost me money. Don't let it cost you money.
11, consider soil quality.
So let's go back to the farm example. Is this area going to be suitable for growing crops? Is this suitable for livestock? Is this suitable to build a house on? How deep is the bearing soil? Is it mushy? I'm going to have to basically at some point get a geotechnical report for the property to figure out the soils. I'm going to have to figure out the drain field design for the septic. And then I'm going to have to figure out what's going to happen with my stormwater. Stormwater in Washington State is a big deal. It's not as big of a deal in other states, but a lot of states it is. When we create impervious surface, where is that water going? We need it to go somewhere.
All right, now we're on section 3, making the offer on land. Number 12, negotiate the price.
So this goes back to that research part that we were talking about earlier. You need to know the market and be prepared to make a good offer. And especially if you're buying on-market stuff, because the on-market stuff, the good stuff moves quickly. Now, of course, if it's been on the market a long time, absolutely make a lower offer. But you need to communicate with your land broker about, hey, is this a good deal or is this not a good deal? Terms, this next one, is more important than price. So item 13 is terms. The terms I can get into my offer because with land, it takes longer. So I need to know what contingencies I can put in, what timelines I can put in, and then can I maybe even get owner financing? Can I get them to carry back a second? Could I make this subject to me getting a building permit? I'm going to give you the ideal. In ideal world, what happens is I get a 30 to a 90-day feasibility timeline that allows me to investigate the property. During that timeline, all of my professional consultants come out, we evaluate the property. We then apply for the building permit during that process. I make my closing subject to getting the building permit and obtaining it. Then what happens is I've taken no risk other than the risk on my consultants. Now, if it's a really hot competitive market, you may not be able to get that, but that's also why we hunt a bunch of land off market, so we don't always have to compete with everyone.
Number 14, consider financing options.
So one of the things to really consider with land is how am I going to finance it? Land into new construction, this is a harder purchase transaction. So every once in a while, there are creative loans that happen where you can do it 5%, 10%, 20% down. And that's a custom construction loan subject to you getting the building permit. I'd say that's a little more on the rare side. The majority of the time, to go build a custom home on land, you're going to have to pay for the land in cash. You're then going to have to pay for the entitlements, aka get the permits and get it ready to go. Then they're going to give you a construction loan. So we need to figure out our different financing options ahead of time, the different loan products, and is there any owner financing available for this particular property?
One bonus question. What percentage of the cost of the land and the building of a home should you have on cash beyond the cost of the home?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So generally speaking, the land is going to be 20 to 35% of the total value of your structure. So if you had 25% and then an extra 5 to 10% in cash sitting there, but 25% essentially to buy that piece of land, and 5% to get all the entitlements and another 5% sitting there, you would be home free, no problem.
Got it. So if you had like $1 million property,
Yep.
$250,000 for the 25% down payment for the land,
Yep.
and then you had maybe like
Another 100 grand.
Another 100 grand.
Yep.
You're good. So we're talking 30 to 35%.
Yep.
All right. Number 15, get a title insurance.
So with land, there's two things I want you to be thinking about. Title insurance is they're insuring the title against lien, encumbrances, and things like that. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to get a loan, they're going to force you to get this. But I'm saying get it anyway. Land, you don't know what's been happening with it. You don't know how long it's been there. You don't know, all of these things. There's different levels of title insurance. So if it's a really tricky piece of land or a waterfront piece of land, you need to actually go pay for the Alta policy, the highest level. Go get the special survey because that's going to protect you the most. Really on waterfront or unique or large pieces, we're going to do that. Next, I want you to work with a title company that specializes in land. So our title company controls 80% of the new construction here in Snohomish County that we work with, Chicago Title. We love using them on land because they know everything and they know how to fix the problems. Last but not least, what this then protects you from is not only the encumbrances, but it protects you from the encroachments and the easements and things like that. As soon as you get that title insurance, you want to start really reading through that title report.
Number 16, understand closing costs.
Okay. So just because you made the offer for 250 grand, like you gave as the example, if I'm financing that, there's still going to be loan fees. There's still going to be title fees, escrow fees. So there's going to be a whole set of closing costs that are involved. We also may have to pay for survey fees, legal fees, blah, blah, blah. Get a complete number there so you understand what the total number is to close that your particular piece of land.
It's like going to a hotel. It's all the fees after what you see on hotels.com. Be aware. Okay, number 17, secure the deal and get the offer signed.
Okay, so all of this was just about, this whole section was like making the offer, right? Once we've verified some of these things, you want to immediately try to tie it up as quick as possible, and you want to tie it up with a feasibility study so you have time to go solve these problems. So once you feel comfortable, make the offer. I'd rather have you make the offer and kill it on the feasibility than not make the offer. So go get it signed, and then second, have your agent go through and double check that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, you're not missing any initials and any dates, and then have them put together a list of the timelines associated with it so you know what contingencies end at what time.
All right, we're moving on to section number 4, due diligence. Number 18, get the title report.
Okay, so we got the offer accepted. We're getting title insurance. So now we get the title report. You want to immediately open the title report and ignore like the general exceptions. You want to go to the special exceptions and read each one of the special exceptions. Inside of there, they're going to list easements, utilities, liens, taxes, all the stuff against the property. That's why we started with this first on the list. Review that one first.
Number 19, conduct a land survey.
So the next thing that we like to do is we like to call the surveyor up, and we're going to get them to set pins at the corners to locate all the corners. We get the topography drawn of it. And then we're also looking for any encroachments across the boundary. The most common encroachment you will see on rural land is a fence or an old shed. It's a fence or an old shed, and it's in the wrong position. If the county knows it's in the wrong position or the city knows it's in the wrong position, most of the time they're going to force you to correct it before they give you your permit, and they definitely won't allow a land development application to happen.
Number 20, confirm access.
Okay. Notice how confirm access has come up twice. This is that important. So if I've got the public road on one side, I'm probably good. But if there is an easement, we have to figure out, is the easement recorded? Is there a maintenance easement, is there a road maintenance agreement against it? Is there other public right-of-way? Is there room for utilities? How wide is the easement? Does the easement allow me to subdivide in the future? Never assume land has access. Prove it to yourself every single time.
How do you confirm the access? Where do you go?
You work with your title company and the city or the county to confirm access. Both of those.
Number 21, confirm lot status.
Okay, so this is a tricky one in Washington State. This does not apply to all states, but it does apply to like half of them. You will see that you have a tax parcel ID number, and people always assume it is a legal building lot. Just because there is a tax ID and it looks like it's a lot on the map does not mean it was legally subdivided and you have the ability to build something there. You have to confirm it was legally subdivided, that it has its own existing lot status, and that you would be allowed to build a structure there. In Western Washington, in most of these counties, there is a lot status application that you do with the county, and you confirm it every single time. Because, let me give you an example. The subdivision code in Washington State came into effect in the late 70s. So there are lots that exist prior to then, this is why we do title reports, that look like they're legal building lots when the two lots sitting right by side are only one legal building lot, not two.
Same place to check that with the title company?
You start with the title company and you have them put together a chain of title to demonstrate it. Then you go to the county and you complete their document demonstrating the chain of title. They give you a notarized thing from the title company, and then they grant it. But there is someone who actually reviews that it was done correctly.
Number 22, hire a civil engineer.
Okay, so now you got to go get the engineers involved. We got to go find the guy or the gal who's going to help us start drawing the beautiful boxes, laying out where the road's going to go, figuring out the impervious surface, and starting to run all these calculations for us. Yes, you can do this stuff by hand, but to be honest, if you're not good at AutoCAD and not an amazing math wizard, I've drawn maybe 4 of them by hand. It's never worth it. Just go pay someone to do it. They'll do it right.
Number 23, identify all easements.
Okay, so you go to your civil engineer and you hand them the title report and show them the easements that are in the title report. And what we like them to do is we like them to take the site map and we like them to draw the easements onto the property for us in multiple colors. So we're selling a land development project right now over here in Smoky Point. And this is a multifamily parcel, and it's 2 acres of multifamily. There is a 30-foot easement going down the whole east boundary of the property that can only be used for ingress, egress, and parking. But it has no benefit for that parcel. It's for the other parcel to the east. So it's like this 2-acre site lost this giant 30-foot strip down the whole east side. So we have our engineer draw it on. And because I'm a simple boy from Arlington, I'd like him to color code it. And I look at the color and I look at the map and go, okay, that makes visual sense to me.
Number 24, wetland delineation.
So we live in Seattle. This is the Evergreen State. It rains a lot here. So with every property, you have to get a wetland delineation done. What we usually do to start with is we pay the wetland delineation guy a site visit first. Okay, so we just pay him to come out, do the site visit, walk the site, and start identifying the wetlands with us. If we feel that we're going to have enough buildable area left in order to accomplish our goals, then we ask him to come back and do the full report. Once they have the full report, that identifies the buildable area and where the building footprints can sit on that site. That's then given to that civil engineer who lays it out on your site map.
And that's important because wetlands can affect your buildable area.
All wetlands in Washington State have a setback. And right now they're doing a critical area update. And in Snohomish County, they're trying to take critical areas up another 50 feet.
Wow.
So a project that you know about would have to add an additional 50 feet. It would lose multiple building lots. And so assume if there is seasonal water, standing water, wetland vegetation, dark soil, soft soil, it's a wetland. And get the professional there to help you figure out what it is.
Number 25, geotechnical report.
So a geotechnical engineer, what they do is they figure out, what kind of soil do I have? What's it look like? How does the soil drain? And then the extent by which you have to do the geotech report is determined based on what you're building there and what the types of soils are. So we have a property that we're working on right now that's up on a hill, and they're going to have to drill 10 feet down in 12 different spots, and that's going to cost like $18,000 versus a normal geotechnical report is probably like $3,000. So with this site, because it's up on a hill, this is about understanding my building site. When I understand my building site, I know how much I'm going to have to spend. The geotechnical report helps you figure out the foundation, where the bearing soil is going to be, also helps to figure out how your stormwater is going to run off, what you're going to do to collect the stormwater, and also the type of soil for your drain field.
Which leads to number 26, drain field designer.
Same thing with a drain field designer. We meet them on site. Quite often, they bring a little mini excavator, roll the mini out. They dig like 4 to 5 holes on site. They look at the type of dirt. They look at how permeable it is. They know other ones in the area. Then they can give you a general idea of what type of drain field is going to be approved for that property.
What is a drain field anyways?
Great question. Thank you. Sometimes I get lost in the jargon here. So a lot of people are used to living in the city. We're talking about rural land. Rural land has its own on-site sewage treatment system, and it's called a septic system. It's a drain field. And so what happens is all of the fixtures in the house come out to a tank. The tank then, depending on the type of system, if it's a gravity system, just pumps it out. But a lot of these new systems have these ultraviolet lights in them, so they go into a second tank, get zapped with an ultraviolet light, then they get pumped out into the drain field area and leaches back into the ground.
Number 27, perform environmental assessments.
When you're buying a piece of land and you're going to live there, you should try to go look for news articles and go talk to the neighbors. Hey, has anyone ever run a machine shop here? Did they work on giant diesels? Were they manufacturing something here? Was it a giant paint booth? What would be a chemical that could be in the ground? And if you're worried about that, you can pay for environmental reports where they come out, they pull soil samples in order to figure out, but you need to perform some due diligence. And based on the first level of stuff that you find, you may need to go levels deeper and start getting soil samples and things like that.
Number 28, check for liens.
So inside the title report, you're checking for liens. And the reason you're checking for liens is you want to know how much they owe against the property. One of the ones we're buying right now has a gigantic tax lien. It's 150 grand. And if the taxes are not paid on it within 6 months, the tax foreclosure process will start and they'll start taking this property. So that's a lien we have to know about because it's creating a definitive deadline that we're marching towards.
Number 29, understand water rights.
Okay. Once again, this goes back to your intended use. Is my intended use just for my family to live there? Is my intended use to have a hobby farm? Do I have the legal authority to collect water out of the ground for a farm, for my trees? Is there water easements across this property? Can I drill a well? Generally speaking, in our area, the well has to be 100 feet away from other drain fields. So that drain field designer is also going to help you pick out that well site. And you can go on the Department of Ecology's website and you can go look and see how deep the wells are in your area. But just know that wells, water, and even public water, you always have to confirm that you have the right to get water and what the water can be used for. And if you're going to use it for irrigation, that you have some type of irrigation rights.
Number 30, review property taxes.
Okay. You want to review the property taxes to see if they've shot up, shot down, or why. And are they getting a senior exemption? Then this is I'm going to give you a little developer hack right here. People make a huge incorrect assumption and they go, oh, it's tax assessed for 300 grand for this piece of land. It's only like $3,000 a year. My taxes are going to be $3,000 a year once my home is built. In Washington State, I need you to assume your property taxes are going to rise to 1.25% of whatever the value is. So if you go build that $1 million home, you're going to be paying $10,250 a year in property taxes at a minimum. They don't always shoot up immediately to catch up, but they will over time. The tax man always catches you.
What if I move an RV onto the property? Do I avoid taxes?
If you have a non-permanent structure on there, you would only be paying land value for it. However, if you start to improve it, the assessor could tax you for more. So if you put in a well, if you put in a road, and you've got your RV, but you decide to build a little shop next to it, okay, they'll start taxing you for more. They always want their taxes.
That was more of a joke to get away from paying taxes, but good to know.
Yeah.
All right, 31. Talk with architect and or plans guys.
So now that I'm starting to identify the property, I need to start looking at house plans. A mistake people make is they pick the house plan out and then they find the property. It's the other way around. Your house plan has to match the property. So now that I've got the property, if you want to go to the expensive high end, you go to an architect and you get plans designed. If you're more of a do-it-yourself kind of person, you go to the person who draws plans, who will draw one to match that particular property. It's important. The sloped one that I mentioned earlier, we're looking at building a daylight rambler on there. On a flat piece of land, you'd never build a daylight rambler. Why? You'd just be excavating out a bunch of earth, and the water table could be high there, and the basement could leak. When you've got a hillside for a daylight rambler to look out across, that's a perfect use of that.
Number 32, contractor.
Talked with the plans guy. I have a basic idea of the plans that I'm going to put together. Now I need to go talk to a contractor and say, hey, how much approximately is it going to cost me to build this? You need to figure that out. Oh, I want to build a 3,000 square foot home. It's going to look like this. Now I go give that to a couple contractors and maybe get some formal bids or at least a couple estimates on what it's going to cost me.
Any tips on working with contractors when it comes to building your house?
That's a whole video in itself that we should record. The short tip is this: read all the reviews online and make sure you got a referral from someone else, and then ask the contractor for a satisfied customer and call the satisfied customer and have a conversation with them.
Number 33, interior designer.
You're like, whoa, Anton. Now we're getting too deep into this, but you're not. If I know my house plans and I know my contractor, the contractor is immediately going to say, okay, well, what are we putting in it? And if I have the interior designer with me and she can give me a rough sketch and maybe a quick little materials sheet, now I can get a really good tight bid of what I'm trying to put together in there. So we hire one very quickly whenever we're looking at it right up front.
Bonus tip here too, it's not just the look of it and how the contractors can have to consider where to build it, how to build it, but it's also even like electronics,
Yes,
lighting.
yes.
The contractor probably will work with an electrician, but he will want to know where are the outlets? Where's your crazy chandelier going to be? Because he has to take that into account when making plans, and then also account for the cost of those things. And
Bingo.
Interior decorator will talk to them. It's not just like you show up in the middle of bills like, I want a huge fireplace right here, right? And I want my big 72-inch screen TV. And I'm saying this all because I was mentored building my first house, and that was one of the first things they told me is like, have all those things visually understood, because all those things need to be powered or need to be installed. And guess what? The contractor is the one that does it, not the interior decorator,
100%.
and not you, the guy that actually builds a house.
People don't understand. When you're building a house, everything costs money. So for each plugin, another $90. You want 4 plugins in a room, almost $400. You want 2, $200. Okay, that adds up quickly. And so it's identifying each one of those things on a giant to-do list, or a giant spec sheet is what it actually is. So that you know we need this many plugins, this many light fixtures, this much cabinets, this many toilets, blah, blah, blah.
But it costs way more when you have it planned, because if it comes post, like build, way more expensive.
Well, here's exactly what happens. Once you've signed the contract and then you go to change, it's called a change order. So what they do is then they ding you $5 to $10,000, and then whatever the cost is, they mark it up an additional 35%. So they have a change order fee, because you actually just slowed down the production of everything. So you pay a change order fee and you pay an extra markup on the item you wouldn't have regularly paid if you just asked for it up front.
And we can't have like extension cords going everywhere.
Exactly.
Number 34, landscaping.
This is one people don't really consider a lot. If you're building a home in a rural area, you probably have anywhere between a 1/4 acre to a 1/2 acre of landscaping. At a minimum, that's $15,000. On the high end, it's $150. So just have a rough idea of the budget and what I'm going to be putting in there. What we like to do inside of our customs is we take it over to one of our landscaping guys and we say, hey, the budget for this is $30,000. Can you just sketch me out something real quick just so I know what's going to go where?
All right, now we're moving on to the last section before you close on the land. And something you want to say before we get into it?
No, I'm excited.
Me too, because I want to start building soon. Okay, number 35, review your budget.
So all of what we were just talking about in the previous section, that's all just due diligence. Now what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you're going to review your budget. Now we can take into consideration all of the numbers, the price of the land, the price of all the consultants, the price of the entitlements, the price of the permits, the price of the clearing, the price of the development, and the price of the contractor, the landscaping, and the interior designer. Review it all. And now ask yourself, number 36, does this property work? And I'm going to tell you just right out the gate, you have already blown the budget. You missed it. So now you got to dig in deep a little bit and go, okay, do I want to spend an extra 5 to 10% to get what I want? I will tell you, in 20 years of playing in new construction, most people blow the budget. Most of them overspend. I've never had anyone come back to me and say, man, I wish I went to spend that extra 3% on this home and got the one I wanted and built it the way I wanted. There was one that we worked with where the staircase got ripped out 3 times. For change orders. Why? The vision was hard to articulate that the individual wanted. And when they got what they wanted, they spent an extra $75,000 to get what they wanted. They were so happy. They were like, this is exactly what I want. This is how I want my family to walk into the home. And me, I look at it and go, it's a staircase. To them, it was the end all be all. So just know going in, budget's not going to fully work. And then you have to emotionally dig and be like, okay, now does this property work for me?
It's like a few Disney World vacations right there, 75 grand.
Yeah.
Number 37, have you answered a majority of the questions?
So notice how we didn't say all the questions. Have all the questions been answered? When you're doing a land project, you're only going to get the majority. So you're only going to get somewhere between 60 to 80% of your questions answered. And then you're just going to have to pull the trigger and move forward. You're going to have to take that leap of faith and start spending money. And you're never going to be able to account for all the unknowns. So how we account for the unknowns is we have that 5% buffer sitting over here. If you're super conservative, Benji, cool, put 10% over there. But you're never going to get all the questions answered.
Number 38, did you obtain the permits?
So back in the offer process, we talked about if you can make it subject to the building permit. Because if I have the building permit, I'm very secure and now I can move forward. And I've accounted for the city or the county changing something on me. But go back and check. Let me explain. We have bought projects where they say we have all the building permits available. And then we figure out, oh, they didn't get a demo permit for the existing structure, or oh, they didn't get a land use permit, or they didn't figure out the stormwater. So go double check everything again in the whole checklist and pick up the phone and call the city or the county and send them an email and say, do I have everything approved so that I can start building tomorrow?
Number 39, is this level of risk acceptable?
This is going back to what we've been talking about. If I've done everything I can during my due diligence phase and I've solved as many problems as possible and I know I have my buffer, now it's, is this a risk I'm willing to accept in order to build the home of my dreams for my family? And if the answer is yes, and I have a little bit of contingency set aside, let's get it done.
What are one or two of the risks that you're talking about at this point?
The project taking longer. So for example, in Western Washington, we go into the winter, it's a rainy season. So if you had started digging the foundation and digging a water line and putting a road in, but you started in winter, that cost could triple. So generally speaking, because we live in the evergreen state, we want to start building roads and putting in foundations prior to the real heavy rain and the winter. And now I can be building in the winter, that's fine, but I don't want to be putting the road in, drilling my well, digging the foundation hole. I want all that done before October in an ideal world. Okay, I don't want to be doing it November, December, January.
Number 40, close on the land.
So it's closing day. Congratulations, you made it to the end. Escrow is going to pick up the phone. They're going to call you. They're going to give you wire instructions. You're going to wire your money over there. It's going to go record at the county. Once it's recorded at the county, you officially own it. Now you're ready to start building your dream home. And what we're going to do is we're going to record some more to this series, and we're going to talk about the land development process for your own home, and then we're going to talk about a custom construction in future episodes. So subscribe and leave us any questions or comments that you have about this. And as always, you can reach us at rsg.com, and we look forward to chatting with you more about land development and building your dream home.